Thanks everyone for making it early to our Mastering Campaign Hierarchy session for the combined Salesforce marketer groups from Melbourne and Sydney. Claudia, if we just move on. I'd just like to introduce Tammy and myself. We're the group leaders for the Melbourne Marketers Group, and we're also seeking an additional leader if anyone has some interest in that. It'd be great if you're in Melbourne, because we're hoping to hold more in-person events going forward, so having the extra pair of hands would be really great. The Sydney Marketer Group, on the next slide, has Anu from Monks, Kavana, who's Salesforce CRM lead at Business Mastery, and Raoul Winberg, who's the digital marketing lead at SFI Health. They're also probably open to any additional members joining the group. We're really trying to build this community, especially with all the changes going on with Salesforce's marketing platforms. It's a great way to stay informed and just share information amongst each other. So today we're doing this Mastering Campaign Hierarchies. We've got 3 very esteemed speakers. And we'll be starting with Claudia Hoops, who's a senior marketing consultant at Sales5. Some of you may recognize her. She's now in Germany, so she's gone out of her way to come and present at our meeting. She used to be one of the leaders of the Sydney group, so we're very excited to have her back on board just for this hour. Also, Adam Estelle, you definitely know that name if you've spent any time on LinkedIn or in the ecosystem reading articles and stuff. So we're excited about Adam as well. And lastly, we'll have, definitely not least, Ben Lamoth, who's also a Salesforce MVP and a marketing champion and writes lots of really great blogs and all that kind of stuff, covering Pardot, account engagement, and the things you can do with it. So I'm going to shut up now and hand over to Claudia to start with campaign hierarchies. Thanks, Claudia.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Andy. And hi, everyone. Yeah, very happy to be back here. I was actually really looking forward to this session because it's really close to my heart, hanging out with my Australian previous community. And also the topic is really as well, like I'm really, I love everything about campaigns and campaign hierarchy. So I was super happy if Andy and Tammy and Anu reached out if I wanted to be part of today. I will do the starting point, laying a bit of the foundations about campaign hierarchies. And then I will pass on to Ben, who will give you a demo about like a specific use case he came across, and is going to show you his experience of that. And then followed by Adam, who will take you through some challenges and also like some solutions and some best practices. And then hopefully we will have some time at the end where we can answer some questions from you guys. So starting off, campaign hierarchies, what are they actually and why do they matter? I wanted to, I always like to start when I do anything with my campaigns with this with this quote from Ben McCarthy. I hope you guys all know Salesforce Ben, the blog, the drip, written by Lucy. If you don't, it's a really, really great resource to learn from in terms of everything marketing automation and tips and tricks. There's also a few links we have prepared in the in this presentation later on for you guys with articles. So he's saying Salesforce campaigns are one of the most underutilized objects in Sales Cloud. I have to say, I'm not sure how old this quote is from him and whether that's still true, but I found this pretty valid in terms of as an opener, why it's actually really important. And specifically this account engagement, previously Pardot having come so close to Salesforce core and sharing the campaign object, it's been even, became even more important. So leveraging campaign hierarchies in Salesforce, they do help you guys as marketers, all of us, to like essentially put our efforts into parent-child relationships so that we can branch it out. They can be built, as we said, hierarchies up to 5 levels. And essentially that helps us streamlining the campaign management and also providing us deeper insights into the marketing performance. So I've had a thought about like what's the biggest benefits of campaign hierarchies, and I feel like these 4 points are pretty much bringing it on point. So you have the opportunity, number 1, with rolled up reporting. So I'll show you a quick demo after this, but essentially with the parent and child relationships, campaigns have fields in campaign and fields in hierarchy, and it allows for, if you put the fields in hierarchy on your parent campaigns, it allows for rolled up reporting. So you understand, for example, if you have a parent campaign of webinars for 2025 and you are creating child campaigns of each webinar, you can see the performance inside the campaign of each webinar on the child level, but you can roll it up into the parent, which gives you like a great overview without even having to build a report, straight on the page layout of the parent. The strategic, number 2, multi-touch attribution. Essentially, if you do have at least account engagement, so account engagement comes in 4, like there's the growth, which is the entry edition, then there's plus, there's advanced, and there's premium. If you have at least a plus edition for account engagement, you do get automatically access to enabling multi-touch attribution models. So by default, there's only the Salesforce model, which essentially just allows for adding 1 campaign to an opportunity and just reporting on that. But with Account Engagement Plus, you can enable in your org 3 multi-touch attribution level reports, which is first touch, even touch, and last touch, which you can enable out of the box, and essentially allows you, like, the more campaigns someone is related to, like someone is a member of, you can understand then the return on investment reporting on your opportunities. So, for example, if I came in on a Google AdWords campaign first, then I might have been a part of an email nurture, and then I might have also maybe attended a webinar, and then I decide to buy and become a customer, and I might spend $60,000 on an even touch, and then say the AdWords campaign, the email nurture, and the webinar, it has 20,000 as a return on investment, like brought to that opportunity, for example. You can manage your budget through it, because there's opportunities to add your budget to each of those campaigns, and then there's already fields available on the campaigns which automatically then calculate like cost per lead, for example. And then the strategic organization, like as I said, it's group by product, region, or final stage. I feel like it's often a good way, which takes me also to my next slide, that you can think about your marketing plan, your annual marketing plan, and what are all the different channels you're using in your annual marketing plan. And essentially building like structure like that. So here I have an example. If our annual marketing plan allows for most of the standard channels, like what we have in marketing usually, this is how your parent structure could look like. So you might have bundled it all together on an annual marketing plan, also a campaign which rolls it all up on the top. And then you can see here the different channels you might be using in your annual marketing plan as the first layer underneath it. And then from here, I'm showcasing here on this slide, for example, if you're breaking down then the webinar layer and the email marketing layer down further. In the webinar layer, for my previous example, we might have the webinars 2025 bucket, and then you have the child campaigns, which are your separate webinars underneath that. And then you can also, based on the campaign type, where there's also some out-of-the-box app exchange solutions, and Adam will also tell you a little bit more about that. But essentially, you can align your member statuses with the campaign type. So for example, if your campaign is a type of a webinar, you can set an automation that the campaign status, member statuses are becoming invited, registered, attended, or no-show. Versus on the right-hand side, I've given an example here of your email marketing buckets, which are then maybe your email nurtures, which are then broken down into your welcome nurture, your top-of-mind nurture, which you can see here, re-engagement nurture. And for those campaign types, the member statuses can be automatically set to like the email was sent, email was opened, email was clicked, or maybe the white paper was downloaded based on the type of the nurture, for example, as well. But it's easy, to essentially put an automation in place where you can standardize your member statuses to, make it an easier life for you to not having to build everything from scratch every time. So how would you want to get started drafting your campaign hierarchy? So I have like a couple of steps mentioned here, and there's also I have a link put in here that there's a Salesforce campaign planning worksheet you can download to work with. But as a first step, just come together as a group in your team, get a Miro, Figma board, or anything like a whiteboard you're using within, and just collect all of the different channels you are actually using in an annual, in your marketing, just to make sure that you have everything covered. And that gives you an idea then to having like the basic campaign hierarchy, similar to the slide I showed you before, where it just looked like, these are all of our different campaigns we are using on the channel. And also the campaign types, helps you define the campaign types, as we said, for webinars and events or emails and the likes. And then as a second step, you can identify the Salesforce campaign structure that fits your needs. So again, set up your parent campaigns as the overarching categories, and then define the child campaigns under each of those. Also, this is just the starting point, and I know it can come across a little bit daunting, thinking how do I know that I get it right from the start, and what if I get it wrong? But it's not something which is to be, has to be set and forget, or has to be perfect from the start. If you get started just with knowing what are my channels, and you have your basic structure in place of all the different channels, you can over time add more child campaigns. It doesn't have to be everything there from day one. And there might also be, there's not just one size fits it all. You might ask yourself questions, how do I layer the hierarchy? Do I layer the hierarchy based on channels? For example, what I showed you earlier, the email marketing channel, and then all of that there, or the social media channels and all of it there. Or maybe you might have the other way around. You might have one big event in a year, and then that event becomes your parent, and underneath might be your different channels, how you are trying to get leads to your event. So this could also, and it could be a mix. It doesn't have to be just one or the other. You can have it both in combination based on how it makes sense for you. Think of it how do you use your budget from a annual plan. Okay, so that's about my slides. I'm going to show you just a quick demo of how a campaign hierarchy could look like in your org, and how you can structure the page layouts differently. And then I have a couple more slides actually to come. So here you can see, can you see now my campaign hierarchy?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So here you can see essentially when you are in your account engagement. I'm not sure if everyone knows how to get here, but I'm just going to show you. If you're just being normal on your campaigns tab here, and you have your different campaigns living here. So here, the annual marketing plan campaign, there is this hierarchy icon next to the name of a campaign. When you click on that, you do actually get to this view. And you can see that the annual marketing plan campaign is actually the highest point. It tells us current. And then you can see the buckets underneath. So this is like then all our email marketing and the different email marketing, which is living here. And then all event marketing, all social media marketing, all web marketing. This is just based on this example here. These columns here are also, you can also customize. So we are showing here how many contacts in general we have in the campaign, then in the hierarchy. So it tells you in one go, in total, we have 336 contacts, across all our campaigns and hierarchy. And it tells us as well, like the value of the opportunities, and also here what the top level campaign is. So there's a whole bunch of other fields as well you can customize to put here. But essentially, I would always recommend put it in a way that it gives you a good overview of like, where are you, how are you doing, what are the best campaigns, how many people are in those campaigns, and how big are the values of the opportunities in there. And then looking at a parent campaign is here on the top. This is like the engagement metrics, which you can add to the page layouts of your campaigns. And you can see as well, you can toggle here on and off. So I'm toggling this, the numbers, it's a demo org, that's why numbers are a bit crazy. But essentially, like, it tells you that you can see in one go how many assets, like account engagement assets, have been related to all the campaigns underneath email marketing, and how are they performing. The same can be seen on the right here. These are the related lists for the assets. You can also put on the page layout for the campaigns. So here currently there's nothing directly related to the parent campaign email marketing. But when I go showing you this one, because this is a child campaign, you can actually see that there's emails attached to that. So you want to essentially make sure that you have like a parent campaign record type or the child campaign record type. And on the child campaign record type is when you're setting up your account engagement connector. That's the record type you want to sync when you this account engagement, because the child campaigns are the ones which you are actually using to add prospects to it directly and to link your assets to, versus the parent campaign record types are only there for your rolled up reporting. So once again, oh, actually, sorry, I didn't share the different tab. I just realized. So I wanted to show you this, where you can see that there is some assets attached to this campaign. But once again, back to this parent campaign, you can see here that we have those fields in hierarchy. So essentially, these fields are showing what are all the campaigns which are sitting underneath as a child to all email marketing. When you're having all of that together rolled up, you understand how all of your email marketing is performing. Versus if I go once again back here, and I'm, for example, going to like this one. You can see here now, this is a child campaign, and you can see that the fields we have added here are actually the fields in campaign only. So it shows us directly how this child campaign is performing directly in here, adding prospects to it. You can do that when you're when you say a new campaign. You can see we have a record type for a child campaign, we have a record type for a parent campaign, and that's how you would create those campaigns differently. And inside account engagement, when you set up your connector, oh, that's not where I wanted to go. And you have your campaigns here. So you can see there's a different record types. And here, I've only ticked on the child campaign, because the child campaigns are the ones we actually do want to actively use in account engagement. We want to add our assets to that, our emails to that, our landing pages to that, and we want to add prospects to it. Whereas the parent ones are only going to be living inside core, inside Salesforce, for rolled up reporting views. That also keeps your campaign list shorter and tidier in account engagements, that you're not going to link every single campaign into account engagement you'd want there, or you have there. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the slides and just a couple more before I'll pass on to Ben. An important thing as well is that you want to stick to, like, create a good naming convention, because I feel that that's oftentimes the problem for lots of teams where everyone kind of like, quick have to quickly create a campaign and just put something in there, put just some name in there. So here's just an idea, or like recommendation how you can develop your campaign naming convention. And you want to make sure, like, it's one of these things, you want to make it a habit. Like, come up with a naming convention based on what sticks best, and then make it a habit, document it, and make sure that the whole team is using it. It makes your life so much easier if you're following a proper naming convention. Yeah, and then just a few more best practices. As I just mentioned, document and stick to naming conventions.
Hey, Claudia, there's a question in the chat from Ricardo. If you have a campaign where content is somewhat evergreen, like an on-demand resource, is the goal to replicate these campaigns every year for the new hierarchy, or do you leave them in their existing hierarchy and only create campaigns for newly launched campaigns? Curious if any of you have solved this challenge for rollover.
Well, I mean, I would say I would create them. I would create a new campaign on a yearly basis, because I feel like on a yearly basis, it's not like often, it's only once per year. And I would say if you are building, like creating your budget, or you have your annual marketing budget, I feel like it makes sense to have a new campaign on a yearly, on a yearly budget, because then you can actually report on it. Okay. And then standardized campaign types and member statuses. What I explained earlier, if you have a type of webinar, you might make it like registered or invited, registered, attended, no-show, or for an email, like an open click downloaded white paper. There is actually App Exchange tools to automate status updates, and I think Adam has something prepared for you later on that one as well, so you don't have to create it from scratch every time. You want to make sure that you add opportunity contact roles, because that is actually, the opportunity contact roles actually builds the glue between being able to report on the opportunity revenue and link it back to the campaign. So oftentimes that's overseen. So there's a related list on the opportunity for the contact role, and you want to make sure that you work with your sales team that they actually add opportunity contact roles. And then the last thing is, like, if you use UTM tracking, there's actually a really nice way to align your campaigns with UTM tracking, like being your UTM source, being your lead source of that sort, UTM medium being the type of campaign, UTM campaign being the campaign itself. And there is a QR code here where you've explained, like there's a My Dreaming session where I've actually built like a screen flow where you can automate that, and you can automate your campaign creation and your UTMs with it if you're interested to watch that. Okay, I actually spoken longer than I think I would, so I'll pass on to Ben now. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Claudia.
Stop sharing my screen.
All right, everybody. Talk a bit about campaign hierarchy use cases. Thanks, Claudia, for that, and a lot of really good information there. And some of that's going to be kind of contextual to what I'm talking about. So it was a really good kind of introduction to the concept of campaign hierarchy. And what I'm going to talk through is the let's see here, this guy here. Yes, okay, good. You can see my screen. Right, so when you have a campaign, there's sometimes sometimes you'll want to, I don't want to call it lazy, but that's sometimes what happens. I've seen orgs that have the same single campaign that they've just used in perpetuity for years. It's the email campaign, it's the landing page campaign, it's the contact us campaign, it's whatever, and it makes it meets the minimum requirements within account engagement to have a campaign, but it's doing that is ultimately putting yourself at a significant disadvantage if one day you were to wake up and say, oh, I probably should have some reporting on like year over year, or for this kind of reporting or that kind of reporting. And by locking yourself into a single campaign, sometimes that can create a problem. Not always, but the idea here that we're trying to kind of evangelize is the ability to have this kind of accordion-like approach to campaigns or campaign hierarchy. And I'm going to talk about a couple of use cases here. I'm going to use the example of a trade show, because a trade show typically has, in my experience with clients I've worked with, has several different means of promotion and several different, specifically, touch points for measurement. When we're talking about a campaign hierarchy, what I like to tell people to start off with when they're thinking about it is think about it with the end in mind. Well, ultimately, what touch points do you need to be able to distinguish for reporting purposes when you're doing your promotion, your pre-show promotion, your in-show promotion, and your post-show promotion? What are the different points that you need to be able to measure, that you need to be able to produce a report to either demonstrate the actual activity that happened, and I guess later on, the activity that actually ended up influencing revenue, either sourced revenue or it was influential in some way during the course of a opportunity being open before it closes. That is something that I try to tell people when they're thinking about campaigns and campaign hierarchy, is that it's all about information organization, and it's ultimately about reporting. So I know that I kind of just circled back to that same topic, but it's, in my opinion, and this isn't like the set in stone, but generally speaking, campaign hierarchy is very helpful when it comes to figuring out what you have to report on. What are the things, what's the data, what are the different data points that are coming out of account engagement that you want to be able to point to in a deck or produce in some kind of report that says, when you're sharing it with your leadership, saying, here's what we did. Here's how I can tell you that we sent all these emails and we generated 15 meeting requests. How do you know that? Because you have the campaign hierarchy in Salesforce, and then it's attached to the appropriate marketing, the marketing actions, the forums, the landing pages, the emails, to be able to put that data in the right places so you can then report on it. So that's why I wanted to I kind of want to start off with that kind of state of mind. What we see here is we see the campaign page layout, and this is pretty vanilla because I just created something in a dev org. So I created this campaign here. I created a singular campaign that I'm calling Awesome Trade Show 2025. And then you see this accordion that's happening where I've got a grandparent, a parent, a child, and then a grandchild. I believe that's the grandparent, parent, child, grandchild. So this is a multi-grandchild or great-grandchild even, parent, child, grandparent, parent, child, grandchild. These are all, like, this is where you're going to have a lot of potentially a lot. So this first one here, yeah, it's a multi-generational hierarchy, exactly. So the top level one, awesome trade show, that's gonna be the container. That's the container for whatever the thing is. So think about, so this is the trade show campaign, the top level container. Everything is contained within it. The next one here is we're thinking about this in terms of the marketing activity that we're doing. In this scenario, we're doing event promotion, or you can call it pre-show. Like I'm working with a client now where this is like, these are the use cases. Like they do a ton of trade shows. That's where most of their leads come from. And so they need a very clear delineation of where these different records are coming from and at what point in the funnel. So there's the event promotion or the pre-show. And then there's within that pre-show, well, so there's event promotion. I could even change this if I want, saying event or a pre and post event, whatever. But this is within this, I then have a pre-event promotional campaign. So I have a pre-event promotional campaign. And then within that, I've got pre-event promotion email 1 and pre-event promotion request a meeting for. Now, this is a pretty significant level of granularity. I'm not saying that this is the way you have to do it, but this is what I see probably 49% of the time. It's not like the one and only, but they want to be able to organize themselves where they can report out on activity at a granular level. You could also very easily just have awesome trade show 2025 and then everything underneath that, one parent and just a bunch of child campaigns. That is also very much something you can do. And that's when you create the campaigns, you have that parent-child record type possibility. So you don't have to be this granular, but I find it tends to scratch that itch for me where I like being able to have things kind of organized in this way where I can say within the pre-event promotional campaign, here's everything that I did. So let's say I'm going to have multiple emails that I'm going to send on this. I'm going to create an email. I'm going to create a campaign. I'm going to call this, so child campaign, parent camp. So I'm going to say it's going to be a child again. And awesome trade show 2025 pre-event promotion email 2. I'm going to find the parent. Awesome trade show pre-event promotional campaign. It's both the same things. So I'm going to call this a email campaign in progress, active, and save. So now, oh, actually, this turned into so this section you need to change. This was not meant to be the hierarchy. The hierarchy is not supposed to make email 2 the parent of email 1 the parent of email 2. So I need to change that. But this is how you would create these campaigns where you would. So I'm going to change this. I'm going to say email 2 is not the parent is not email 1. I'm going to go back. I'm going to say nope, that's not right. So I'm going to call this. I'm going to say this is the parent. So now that this is the parent, and I'm going to go all the way up to the hierarchy. I see the top level. I see the container for the event promotion. I see the pre-event promotional campaign. And you can even be more specific and say, this is actually just the email nurture. Because if you have a pre-event, the trade show 2025 event promotion, you could do things like you could have, this is the email nurture, and this is the AdWords campaign, and this is the LinkedIn campaign, and this is the whatever. Like you can that's where that comes in. Like this is where you're able to select by channel. So this would be the email channel, and then within the email channel, I have email 1, email 2, and a form. So what this gives you is a lot of really good information that you can then go in to build a report around. So I went ahead and I built the Awesome Trade Show report. And you see here, this is a parent campaign, Awesome Trade Show 2025, pre-event promotional campaign. This is the parent, and then within this we have the event. We have email 1, which has campaign members, and request a meeting, which has campaign members. So within the hierarchy, you're able to like to really display where these people interact in a campaign. And what this does give you the ability to do is to say, let's say you've got 3 emails in your nurture, and you create a campaign for each of them. And after each email, you have a wait step in the account engagement to say, if they click the link, add them to this campaign, email 1 with a status of responded. Email 2, did they click the link? Add them to the email 2 with a status of responded. What you're able to see is all of their different touch points within that campaign across all the emails you sent, and then ultimately the goal of the form completion. So it gives you a lot of information to show you how engaged they are. And I'll go back to what I said at the top. Not everybody wants or needs this, but the possibility is there of saying, if you use hierarchies in this way, you can really dig very deeply into and get a very rich kind of view of everything that's happened. And you can then point to this in reporting. You can say, Brenda clicked on email 1 and she filled out the form. Cool. Brenda clicked email 1, email 2, or Abigail clicked email 1, email 2, email 3, and filled out the form. So this, like, it's a lot of data that could either be a lot of signal or a lot of noise, depending on how you do reporting. That's the other part is, what do you need to, what kind of reporting do you need? And then against the backdrop of how do you guys do reporting? Those two things have to be balanced with each other. And I know that we need to make sure that we have enough time for Adam. So I'm not going to like go crazy here, but at a high level, this is ultimately something that you can gain from having a hierarchy. Again, if there's nothing else you take from this, remember, any campaign hierarchy you build should be built with the end in mind. What do you need to report on? Don't create creating a hierarchy for hierarchy's sake is meaningless. It doesn't do anything other than, I don't know, I guess being able to say, have it look very, very well organized. But if the organization that you have doesn't match reporting that you need to be able to do, it's not very useful in the end. So with that, I'll set this down and say, this is an example. This is not the only way, but it does open the ability to do very granular reporting with a campaign hierarchy at an either very granular level or a high level.
Thanks, Ben. Are you able to provide like a sample of this sort of report that we can add to what we send out to everyone? Just because I know we've had to
like when you say a sample, you mean like a screen grab
just
or
a screen grab of something?
Okay, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Sorry to rush you now, but Adam's got quite a bit of stuff to cover as well. So thanks, Adam. Thanks, Ben.
All right, let's see if we can get this train rolling here. All right, so Claudia and Ben talked a lot about some of the tools that are available, some of the ways that we can kind of structure things. And I want to take this conversation and pivot a little bit about some of the challenges and things we might need to consider as we are working with campaign hierarchies, right? And like anything else in Salesforce, a big challenge is always going to be that data quality, right? So to start us off, thinking about the naming of campaigns, right? Especially when you have hierarchies, multi-levels, names can get quite interesting on, how do we make it as helpful as possible for people to pick the right campaigns, especially when they're in downstream tools like account engagement, right? Where you only have maybe 40 characters of that name visible to pick from. Right, so think about your naming convention, where the different pieces are. Maybe more importantly, have a naming convention. And there's lots of different things that you can do to make naming a little bit easier. A lot of people will have a screen flow where you start picking different fields and the name gets created automatically for you. I've created an Apex solution where it actually enforces the name, because teams would go in behind the scenes and adjust the name to be whatever they wanted it to be, causing a lot of reporting challenges. So again, think of ways that you can have that name be consistent and succinct. When we're thinking about reporting, and if you're doing if you have a lot of individual marketing teams who might have their own views on hierarchies, right? If you're doing cross-org reporting, having inconsistent hierarchy depths can pose a challenge, right? So if you're at all able to, try to stick with, a fairly simple and standard set of hierarchy levels, right? So in this example, we have initiative, strategy, and tactic. Doesn't have to be those three things, but come up with something that can work across the org if you can. Another thing that some people do is they'll create a custom field on the campaign record itself, just denoting the level, right? And that way it makes it a little bit easier to filter reports down the line. So you can say, just show me all tactic campaigns and the numbers that are within. When we're thinking about campaigns and capturing all those data touch points, right, it can be really tempting to have a campaign for absolutely everything that we're going to do, right? Because maybe later in the year I might need to report on it, right? And while account engagement and various tools make it really easy to capture all of those touch points and capture all of the data, I've come across orgs where the campaign member storage just completely blows everything out of the water, leading to, after the fact, thinking of, okay, what can we cut? What might we need to archive, right? So just having that plan a little bit ahead of time to figure out, how much is too much, how much is too little. And like Ben said, you really need to find that middle ground so that you can power the reports you need to without blowing up the org behind the scenes. Sorry, I just read Ben's comment. Another challenge that I've come across is that
I'm gonna add one thing really quick. I will add just I had a client who was going through their data storage, and they had like 20 gigs of campaign influence data.
Yep.
That was entirely due to what they chose to do with hierarchy and campaign members. Every single marketing action created at least 5 campaign members per individual. It was insane. So yeah,
especially if you have the even touch distribution model enabled.
Yes.
Right, it becomes an exponential challenge when it comes to the campaign influence storage, right? So not only is your campaign member storage going to be high because you're capturing each one of those touch points, right? But if you have people, prospects or contacts that are highly engaged and participating in multiple opportunities, that's really going to blow things up.
Yeah, that's a dirty little secret people don't think about till they realize that they're over their storage and Salesforce is asking for a few $100 or $1,000 or more, so you can keep doing your multi-generational craziness and reporting. Anyways, sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Oh, that's cool. Another challenge is the hierarchy fields that come out of the box with campaigns. The numbers can be vastly inaccurate, especially again if you're using the even touch distribution model as your primary campaign, right? And the reason for that, and I've got some examples here, right? What it boils down to is that the fields that are shown in the user interface, they're not doing a true count of the distinct contacts that are underneath in the hierarchy. It's literally just a count of the campaign member records that are a contact, right? So if you have Claudia who's engaging with every single one of your emails, right? When we're looking at the count, Claudia might show up 10 or 20 times. And if we're looking at, the red boxes here, 10 of those might be the same person, right? So same thing with lead count. It's the same idea here. Now, what's nice is when we're looking at campaign influence, the value is actually calculated correctly. It's one of the only fields in this roll-up that is correct, which is nice because it's dealing with dollar values, and leadership tends to be a little bit more concerned with dollar value reporting than number of people. But again, it's just something that we're going to need to really, really consider here. Same thing with one opportunity or one influence. It's all in here. I'll pause now because Claudia raised her hand.
I was just wondering, Adam, would you consider or recommend then building your own, custom distinct hierarchy fields and swap them around with the one out of the box?
Yeah, I would lean to a reporting solution, which is going to be a little bit easier for most teams to do out of the box without having, a developer. But it's just something that we really need to think about and consider. All right. Now, layered with that, right, is where do we add people as campaign members? Right. So campaign influence, when it's doing its calculations, especially like the even touch distribution model, it doesn't really care about hierarchies, right? So if Alex is in both the parent campaign of Ad Social and LinkedIn and Instagram, right, it has to split the revenue of the opportunity, or at least Alex's portion of the revenue if there's multiple contacts, across all three of those campaigns, right? So it can one could argue it unfairly skews the revenue in the example on the screen here to the social side of things. Now, the social teams are not going to care. They're going to be really happy because they have hopefully more budget in the future, but it's not as accurate as one would really hope for it to be. So what are some solutions and some best practices that we can do to try to tackle some of these challenges when we're thinking of campaign hierarchy depth, right? For teams that can't broadly say, hey, everyone, we're going to go with a 3-level hierarchy, right? Some of the things that I've seen is we'll have a checkbox on the campaign saying this is the lowest level campaign. Right, so you can have a flow that automatically sets or clears that checkbox so that if you're going to do a cross-org report, you can say, hey, I just want to see the lowest level campaigns, and that'll give me, one layer of the reporting view that I might need. If you're going to go with something like this, you'd want to also adjust your campaign influence auto association settings to, try to use this too, and then we'll avoid that scenario of the screenshot I had earlier with Alex being added as a campaign member to another level. Similar, you can stamp campaign records with with the level that they are, right? So if you're going to do a lot of custom reporting, it might be helpful on each campaign to have a custom field saying this is the top level campaign. Right, top level, call it the root, grandparent, great grandparent, whatever you want to do, but it helps you easily organize your report grouping by that level. One of the earlier points that Claudia had touched on is, right, when you're creating your hierarchy and you have different campaigns and groups, having the statuses themselves being predefined and consistent will help with your reporting overall. Now, this isn't necessarily a hierarchy challenge, right? It's one that we have with campaigns just across the board. But there are flow examples and blog posts out there that show how you can automatically create these campaign member statuses so that they're consistent within types of campaigns. And I've even worked with a customer where teams would, have something like this implemented, but then the marketer would go behind the scenes and remove clicked for email, or they'd remove registered and call it something else because it's what they preferred. So I had created a solution that enforces and protects those statuses so that they're always there and always consistent, right? If someone goes and deletes one, it gets re-added right away. So it kind of protects and enforces those solutions. Now, when we're thinking about the hierarchy and trying to capture all of that information, right, it can be tempting to have extra levels of hierarchy to like capture every variation of a social ad, for example, right? And that will add to the complexity of your hierarchies and all of the other ripple effects that we mentioned with, numbers being all over the place. So a common solution is to use UTM parameters in your digital ads or in your emails or things like that, where you can capture a little bit more detail about how someone arrived at your asset. And how that typically looks is, the URL is clicked, you have a form that's capturing those UTM values, as hidden fields, most likely. You're syncing it to Salesforce, and you have automations that are creating your campaign member. Now, if we're thinking about, how that's built behind the scenes, you're going to have a slew of custom fields littered all across your model objects, right? From your prospect and account engagement, or whatever your map solution might be. You're going to have it on your lead and your contact, so that when the sync happens, Salesforce is now aware of these UTM values. Then you'll have your automation that's, again, stamping those values onto your campaign member, right? So that you can actually do some interesting reporting. So it's just a little bit of a data flow diagram that kind of repeats what I just said. So I'll move on here. When we're thinking of capturing this information on a form, what you'll typically see is some variation of what we have on screen here, where you'll have a block of JavaScript on all of your website pages that's going to capture that UTM and put it in a cookie. And then you'll have another piece of JavaScript on your forms that's going to take the value from the cookie, if present, and stamp it into the form, so that that whole flow can be powered and captured. Now, when we're looking at a report, right, we can see for this particular campaign that people are coming in from a Google campaign, right? That's kind of hopefully obvious from the first two columns there of UTMs, but we can see a whole bunch of variation in some of those other ones, right? And this kind of allows you to keep your campaign hierarchy a little bit more on the simple side, but still give marketers the data and the insights that they need to really dig in deep, right? Odds are you're not going to report to your senior executive team the details of how that's going, but you still want to find out where can we improve. So when a visitor has multiple UTM touch points, a lot of them are actually being left behind, right? Because you have, you're trying to capture it on a form, but if someone, clicks on 3 or 4 different ads, you're only really going to get that last one. Some people will add extra JavaScript and extra field to try to do a first and last touch, but it's not something that's going to flow all the way through fairly easily. And for me, I found that really frustrating, because I could look inside of account engagement and I could see that all of those touch points were being captured. Right. So what I did is I built a solution that allows us to capture each one of those UTM touch points, throw it in Salesforce, and now we can light up a whole bunch of interesting campaign member reports and campaign influence reporting. So this is just a screenshot of a record that gets created in Salesforce, right, where we can see, what was the URL, who were they, when did it happen, and a bunch of interesting stats. When you're able to capture all those UTM touch points inside of Salesforce, now we can drive additional reporting on the campaign to see, hey, for this LinkedIn ad, right, we had a whole bunch of anonymous people visiting, right? Not many people were, ended up converting, right? Is that an opportunity for us to improve the ad or change the ad up, right? It gives you that extra information to make smarter decisions. With the solution that I made, right now, we're able to capture all of those individual touch points and make it a little bit easier for marketers to have that full visibility and adjust campaign influence reporting so that the right teams get the right credit that is likely deserved. I'm surprised I got through all that in the time that I had. So I think we are sharing the recording and the deck after this. here's a list of the resources and links that we kind of sprinkled throughout the presentation. The actual URLs are going to be in the notes for this. I know we only really have a minute left, but if people want to stick around, I think we would be happy to do a little bit of Q&A.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, we're just on time now, but if people want to stay and ask questions, that now's your opportunity. I see Raoul has one in the chat. Did you want to?
Just before everyone drops off, for those who are dropping off, the next event, just so everyone knows, we've had to move to May the 1st, and it's to do with Marketing Cloud on Core. So that's the platform that was announced in APAC 3 weeks ago at Sydney at Agentforce World Tour in Sydney. There's a really awesome boot camp going on at the moment, which Claudia actually happens to be part of, where the team there have unpacked the product in different sequences. So if you want to hear more about that, look for Claudia on LinkedIn and follow. She's got some posts. But yeah, I just wanted to make everyone aware that locally we're going to do a really kind of dumbed down version of that, just to introduce everyone to Marketing Cloud on Core, because it's brand new in APAC. So that's May the 1st. So when we send out the post notifications, you should see an invite at the bottom to invite you to that. So please join that session. It's really exciting. Cool.
Thanks, Tammy. Yeah, and we will share all this documentation. Some of it will go in our group, but we'll also try and attach everything to the emails that go out. So if anyone has any questions, you can unmute yourself now and take the floor.
Well, I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining, and hopefully this was helpful. Thanks for having me, everybody.
I'll just elaborate on my question in the chat. Firstly, huge thanks to everyone, because this was super helpful for me, and it's going to change how I've set up my hierarchy. So thank you. I'm just wondering if it ever makes any sense to break down a campaign hierarchy on a product level.
I guess I would say it comes back down again, Raoul, in terms of like how you want to, thinking, starting with the end in mind, like how do you need to report on it? Like, I guess you gave that Apple example, like if the budget, is shared like that, is shared on a product basis, and there are specific KPIs set around on a per product, then probably it does make sense to break it down that way, so you will be able to report on it.
Yeah.
I'd say, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just also really liked how starting with the channels, as you said, in the first layer. But then if I would also break it down for each channel into each product, I would quickly end up with over 50 child campaigns. So that's my consideration at the moment.
Yeah, another option would be to just have a custom field for the product level, right? And then that would give you the ability to pivot and create entire campaign hierarchies just for that product. Yeah, I think there's a few different approaches you could take.
Thank you. I'll look into that option.
Cool. Ronaldo, did you want to?
Yeah, thanks everyone. My question was for Adam. The very last point that you were talking about, like where you said you built a custom solution to track all of the touch points of the UTMs, pretty much saying instead of just looking at the last touch or the first touch, you're able to capture all of them because you're able to see them in account engagement.
Yeah.
Was when you built that, is that like building it out like on a separate custom object and then kind of then being able to report on it? And that's one question, is like where that solution, how do you kind of build it? Is it a custom object? And then the follow-up question to that is, when you have all these different data points, what are some of the things you used it for? Like, did you create like cohorts, or like did you track them? Like, what, after you're capturing them all and in a reportable manner, how are you actioning off of that data?
Yeah, so it is a custom object, right? So it's part of the package that I created. It's called UTM Touchpoint. We see here it's got a whole bunch of them. If we click on one, I don't remember which is a good one, but we'll go with this one. right? We see that we can link this touch point record to the campaign.
Can you
If
share your
the-
screen?
Oh, hold on
It's
here.
still on the QR codes.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. Thought I had done entire screen. All right, so I'll go back here for a quick second. So yes, it is a custom object. It's called UTM touch points. If we look at a single record, we can link this UTM touch point, which really in Pardot words, it's a visitor page visit. Right, we can link that to the campaign based on UTM parameters matching. If that Pardot visitor is a prospect that has synced to Salesforce, it can then look at whether it's a lead or a contact. And then when we have those two connection points together, we can go ahead and create the campaign member record automatically so that it powers campaign influence. Right. So when we're thinking of, what value can these records have, really it's empowering the kind of the out of the box features for campaign influence, campaign member tracking, and things like that.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Thank you for going through that. The one question or follow-up for that is if it's powering campaign influence, usually like campaign influence from what I've seen out of the box has like those 3 models, like the first touch, even touch, and or last touch. If you're able to get all of the touches for known visitors and sync them to particular campaigns, what model would you be using? Would you be using a custom model at that point?
I would definitely be using at least the even touch distribution,
Okay.
right? Then you're actually splitting
actually
the
even,
revenue
yeah.
across all of them.
Okay, that
If
makes
you want to
sense.
get into some more complicated models, there aren't really any that come out of the box, but there are some app exchange solutions that are out there that can kind of do that for you. But they have their own limitations depending on how they choose to implement it.
Right. No, thank you. No, as soon as I asked the question, I was like, no, it would be even touch because you're basically providing the actual even touch information with this custom object, whereas in reality, most of the time it's last touch or first touch.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
All right. I think there was another hand raise. Are they still here or did they bounce?
I think it was Ricardo, and he had pretty much the same question as Ronaldo. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah. Okay, it's 9:07 and probably much later than that for some of you. So, really do appreciate your time today presenting on this. Yep, we will send out the deck and the recording, and that'll have all the links to everything that you've seen today. And yeah, really appreciate you joining us, and I'll see you next month.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Great
everyone.
session. We've had some really great feedback in the chat, so really, really exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.